Who was supposed to do it?
Hey everybody, welcome to Ignite 2.0 Elementals session number 7. My name is Ed Marill. I'll be your host for today. Okay, so let's see, what do we got here? So welcome to Negotiate the Deal. So again, my name is Ed Marill. I have been in real estate as an agent since 2010, as an investor since like 1995. This should take 1 hour, this session today, and we're not going to have any breaks or whatnot because it's just an hour. After this session today, you, the participant, should be able to, number one, break down and apply tactics to tackle common points of negotiation. Number two, analyze and recall counter tactics to make the negotiation a win-win. And three, examine the negotiation strategy of the 3 Ps. Prepare, present, and position, and employ the strategies through practical application. Okay, so today, these are the skills we're going to focus on. Negotiating contracts. It's part of running your business. Negotiations are an integral part of most real estate transactions. Negotiations can be a pivotal point in the transaction. It is important to find common ground and to strive for win-win agreements. Negotiations can be a deal maker or a deal breaker. Okay, so today in this 1 hour, we're going to break down the common points of negotiation. We're going to examine the 3 Ps approach to a negotiation. We're going to analyze counter tactics. We're going to employ the 3 Ps. So we're going to have some script practice. We're going to recap and create your success list, and then we talk about the daily success habits. In this section, participants, you're going to be able to break down the common points of negotiation in a transaction and learn how to apply tactics to tackle common points for negotiation. Okay, a negotiation is the bargaining process between 2 or more parties seeking to discover a common ground to reach an agreement to settle a matter or mutual concern or resolve a conflict, right? The graphic on the screen graphically depicts a negotiation. The negotiation happens between a buyer or seller and their agent, and it also happens between the agents involved in the transaction. Negotiations also take place in 2 areas of the transaction, right? Those of you who have been through a transaction know this. There's the offer phase, which is when we typically think of as transactions. So, and the goal of the negotiation there is to get a contract locked in, to open up escrow. We want people agreeing on a contract. And then during the contract period, there's the option period, or what here in California, we often call this the contingencies period, right? This happens while the under contract, and the goal is to close the contract. So let me ask you guys, so how can your ability to negotiate affect the outcome of the deal? Anyone want to take a crack at that?
Well, I feel it might be depending on if you're the buyer's agent or the listing agent, how it could outcome. If you're able to sweeten the deal in the contingency period, it might be better if you go from 10 days to 7 days. Might help your deal as like a buyer.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me ask you guys this: Can an agent screw up the deal during negotiation?
Yeah,
absolutely, right? Absolutely, and it's heartbreaking when you see this happen. Just breaks your heart. It's nothing worse than, and on either side, whether you're representing the seller or you're representing the buyer, and some agent with a big ego's got a bone to pick and they start getting all cocky and everything else, and they start throwing things out there that are just killing the deal. And you see this happen sometimes. It's awful. What are some ways that you negotiate in your everyday life? If you have kids, do you ever negotiate with your kids?
Exactly. That's a tough negotiation.
There's a lot of parents negotiating iPad time right about now. I can tell you from experience.
Julia knows negotiation with mom and dad.
Right? Absolutely, absolutely. What are skills that great negotiators possess?
Hmm.
I love
Listening.
this,
Convince.
I love this question, by the way. And we're going to talk about this for a second. I love this question.
Go ahead.
Listening.
Definitely, definitely.
Listening.
Looking for a solution rather than looking to win at all costs, right? Know what your client is trying to achieve, and it's not always about the price, right? I mean, most of the time it is often, right? But oftentimes there's other things we can do to compensate to get a better price, or sometimes in your client's case, sometimes agents don't know when to stop negotiating and they're still going after every penny, and their clients are like, dude, I want the house, like stop it. Like I want to win the negotiation. Stop screwing it up. Some
So
agents
it's
think
better
like,
to listen what the clients want and go for that.
so yeah, we do want to get our clients the best deal, but we also want to get our clients the house or sell the house, or sometimes they have a time frame, and not every time is the highest number the actual best. Even if we're trying to get the best number in the end, not every deal that comes in, the highest number is always the best way to get the best number at the bottom line at the end of the day. Does that make sense? Because sometimes you want to give it all. If there's an all cash offer with zero contingencies, sometimes it's worth it to give them the benefit versus somebody who's got like 10 contingencies, and an agent who has a reputation for being somebody who's asked for the kitchen sink during the repair period, right?
Well, that just comes down to what they want, right? Do they want cash in hand now, or do they want to take more money, right?
Or if you know a property is going to have problems during the repair period, sometimes if there's an offer that's maybe a little bit lower, but there's no contingencies or less contingencies. For example, sometimes people don't have an appraisal contingency, and if you can remove that, that's oftentimes good, right?
But would you do the negotiation without appraising the house?
Yeah, you can. Some clients, some buyers are like, you know what, we have some extra cash. If this place doesn't appraise, I'll put up the extra cash. I don't mind. So that happens. Not often. You have to be careful because you want to make sure your client knows what they're doing, and especially if they know the risks involved. But sometimes clients want to do that. I just was in a bidding war last week with 10 other parties, and we won because my buyers were like, we don't need any contingencies at all. He was an architect and the other guy's a contractor. So when we saw the house, they basically did their home inspection while we were there. And it's a house that they're going to need to renovate from floor to ceiling anyways. So they know there's going to be tons of problems. They're okay with it. So in that case, they were fine remove, and it's a cash deal. So they were fine having zero contingencies. It makes the escrow period really interesting because all you do is they deposit the escrow money, and then it's like, okay, now we just wait 45 days and we close. There's no inspection, there's no appraisal, there's no loan contingency.
But in that case, they did the inspection because they are builders. And,
right. So they didn't need it. They didn't need an inspection period. They just did their inspection while they were touring the property before writing the offer, right? So that can happen here. But on this question specifically about what are the skills, oftentimes people think great negotiators are like these big top agents with big agents, and they come in and they try to bully people, right? Like, well, I'm going to give you that, and they're just super aggressive and whatever. I will tell you in my experience in these years doing it, that the ones who I've always felt were the most skilled negotiators are the people, the people who are really nice. And sometimes you don't even see it coming. I remember being in escrow on a deal with this really sweet lady in Charleston, South Carolina. And this person who happened to be an acquaintance of mine, a colleague who I didn't know her very well personally, but I knew she had a great reputation of being great to work with. And so I was excited to get to work with her. And I remember after negotiating, we were going through the escrow period, and suddenly I thought about, I was like, God, you know what? I kind of caved in a little bit on I probably could have gotten an extra $5. I didn't see it coming. I was so like charmed by her sweetness that I didn't even realize that I probably could have gotten an extra $5,000 on it. And I was like, with most agents, I probably would have pushed back one more time, but I was just so happy to be doing, she seemed so easy to work with. I was like, oh, my clients are like, what do you think? Should we go back on a counter offer? And I was like, no, let's just take this. This is a great deal, So, that's a skill of a great negotiator of finding common ground and presenting it in such a way that everyone's happy to accept it, right? Okay, so why is asking questions? Now, Eric, you mentioned this earlier. Why is asking questions important when negotiating?
You can find out more details that help you in the negotiation.
Exactly.
Help you understand what they want from the deal, right?
Help you to understand what your clients want, but also asking questions of the other agent to find out what does their client want? What is the opposition? What are their priorities? Because if my client, their priority is, hey, we're moving in 2 weeks. We're leaving out of town. We already have our movers packed. We need to be out of here in 4 weeks. We have an offer on the table. Let's make it work. And the other people, their biggest concern is price. Well, then now now I know where the priorities are, and maybe I want to give a little bit on price to make sure that we're staying on track with timeline, right? So we just want to find out what is everybody's needs and wants. Okay, what do they have here? After the investment of moving a lead through the process, you don't want the deal to fall through now. Their ability to negotiate will directly influence the rate of contracts they close. Okay, so everybody, I hope you have your participant guide. Turn to page 4 in your participant guide. Once an offer is made, there are 3 possible outcomes. The offer can be, so it's really simple. Every time there's an offer coming through, whether it's an offer or a counter offer from the other side, there's only 3 outcomes. The offer can be accepted, rejected, or countered. If the offer is rejected or countered, that is where their negotiation skills that's where your negotiation skills can shine. Okay, so once again, let me ask you guys, what are some negotiation issues that have the potential of coming up during the buying or selling process?
The price.
Absolutely.
And the contingencies, or the closing costs.
Yeah.
Like who pays the closing costs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some other things that we can go back and forth on?
Repairs.
Yep.
Appliances.
Yeah, exactly. Furniture or household items, the contents, right? Sometimes. By the way, we can get into this a little further, but when you're representing a buyer, I love throwing in a bunch of extra stuff at the beginning, because later on, I start letting them take some of those things back. Now you got to be careful. If you're in a bidding war, you can't be quite so cute. But if you're one-on-one and you have time and there's no one else that they're negotiating with, I like to include a bunch of stuff up front, because later on, I'll be like, I'll tell you what, we won't take the washer and dryer, but I really do want to get the price. I want to keep the price where it's at. Or you can use other things as bargaining chips, right?
On Rob's deal, to get it done, the buyer wanted some of the furniture, so they gave the buyer $1,000 credit.
Yeah.
And then they used that $1,000 to buy some of the furniture from the staging company.
You mean the seller gives the credit, like $1,000, so they can buy?
A couple other things that you could negotiate on is what's the closing date going to be? What's the inspection period going to be? How many days of inspection are they going to get, or how many days are they going to have for different inspection periods? And once we close, does anybody need to lease back the property? So oftentimes the seller wants to close on, let's say, August 1st. They want to close the property on August 1st, but they want to still stay in the property for a week till August 8th, because that way it'll make their move out a lot easier while they move into their new place, right?
Yeah.
So that can be possible. On that note, I'm a big fan. Leasing back to the seller, not a problem. That's pretty easy to do. Having the buyer move in prior to closing, big red flag. Never, never, ever, ever, ever do that. Ever do that. Ever. Ever. Ever.
What is it? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Never let the buyer move in before the closing date.
Oh,
Never let the buyer move some of their belongings into the garage or whatever they're asking for, which comes up very often.
why is that?
Because it is not impossible that something could happen at the last minute to throw the deal off.
Oh, okay.
It's
And
not
then the
impossible.
seller will be stuck, you
Yeah.
mean?
It's not, I've had buyers ask, can we go ahead and start painting? No, absolutely not. No way, ever, ever, ever. Because if something happens and the deal doesn't happen, you never know. Something can hold up the deal. Now we've got a wall that's painted pink or whatever, puke green or whatever. Okay. Let's move on. Okay, so common points of negotiation. So you might want to be on page 5 of your guide. The participant guide contains more detail about the common points of negotiation. The common points of negotiation typically fall into one of two categories, either pricing or terms, right? Pricing or terms. While the sales price is the primary factor in negotiations, it is not necessarily the bottom line. That's what we were talking about earlier. In a situation where a seller receives multiple offers at the same price, it is the terms of those offers in addition to the buyer's financial position that will determine which one wins. By the way, the deal that I just wrote up last week, we were not the highest number. We were close, but we were not the highest number.
How did you get the deal?
Because we were all cash with 0 contingencies.
Okay.
And that way the seller knew, man, if we take this offer, we're done. Like they're not going to come back and say, hey, can you fix this? There's nothing there. They don't have to worry about us asking for any repairs because we don't even have the right. We don't even have the right to inspect, right?
Does that happen more with developer clients than?
Yes, definitely more often with developer clients. It happens sometimes. Here's an irony, is it seldom happens at lower price points and it happens more frequently with like multi-million-dollar properties. So riddle me that. I mean, that just shows you how America is, right? You have people buying $10 million properties paying cash. Somebody's buying like a $500,000 condo and they're, financing 97%, that's typical. Okay. The terms of an offer may be financial, time-based, or both. When the buyer and seller can't agree on a sales price, the following 5 offer terms come into play. We talked about some of these earlier, the closing cost, the closing date, conveyances, right? What's included with the property, right? That's conveyances. Earnest money and option fee. We don't really ever have an option fee here. But earnest money is almost like option fee because our inspection contingency period is pretty much unilateral. You get pretty much carte blanche to get out of a contract here in California.
And isn't it standard, the earnest money to put down?
3% it's not carved in stone. You can ask for a different earnest money, but typical is 3% earnest money is the earnest money in California.
I see.
Repairs can also be negotiated, as we talked about. So do you guys have any questions or ahas before we move on?
Mm-hmm.
I love that question. It's perfect. Okay, so now turn to page 6 of the participant guide. Let's see. We're not gonna break into groups to do this, but the activity is this. Okay, we're gonna do this together because we have a pretty small group here. Mm-hmm. Okay, read through so turn to page 6. Read through the list of negotiation tips. After reading the tips, go back to page 5 in the participant guide. They will need to select one of the common points of negotiation, price, or one of the listed terms. Write down your choice on the space provided on page 5. Is everybody following along? Is everybody able to do that? Is anybody missing the packet to do this from? To be quite honest with you, I don't even have the packet in front of me, so I'm not sure what's even there.
Okay.
Oh, I got it. I see it. It's on the closing cost, closing date, conveyance, earnest money. Got it. So yeah, pick one of those things, right? Does everybody have your choice selected?
Uh,
Yeah.
So Amal, just pick out something from page 5, one of those 5 points of negotiating, or price, right?
Or price. Okay. I'll pick the closing day costs.
Okay, closing costs, got it. So now use what you have learned so far to brainstorm a list of how you might respond to that negotiation point. See if, so let's just go one by one. Eric, what do you have as your point?
I went with my point for Amal's closing date.
No, your point for which one did you select from page 5?
Conveyances.
So, knowing that your clients want the conveyances of, say, the washer and your clients really want the washer and dryer, even though it's not listed on the MLS. What might you do at that point?
First, I would write it into the offer.
Yep.
And then see what they respond. Is this a really high tech washer and dryer, which they just bought like 3 months ago? That might be a little bit more of a sticking point. So it might be like, if it's worth $1,000 for the whole set, maybe throw in like 500 and then try to get it for 750, you know? Or if it's just like they don't have a washer and dryer and it's not a high tech one, just write it in and see what they say, because more than likely they're just going to leave that anyway.
Yeah, I like it. So all valid ways of doing it, right? And Amal, how about you? Which one did you choose?
I chose the closing costs. So the closing costs, like we negotiate with them if
So,
we.
hey, Amal, let me stop you there for a second, because for anyone who doesn't know, let me just kind of talk about closing costs. So right now, kind of the standard is to put 20% down on the house. Sometimes you can find a loan program where they'll take 10% down. So let's say we're buying $1 million house and we need to put 10% down. That's $100,000. That's a lot of money. A lot of first-time buyers don't have $100,000, understandably, because that's a lot of money.
Mhm.
So in order to help them out, sometimes what we can do is we can say, I'll tell you what, if you have $80,000 to put down, let's see if we can negotiate with the seller to see if we can do 2% of the purchase price credited towards the buyer at closing towards closing costs, right? And now it's not always, it can't always go towards the down. Oftentimes it just has to be goes towards some of the other costs that they incur, like first and last, the insurance payment, the so insurance, taxes, all those payments that go into escrow fees. We can pay for some of that stuff up front. So you can help your client have to come up with less money up front by helping them arrange for having the seller to help them pay for some of their closing costs at closing. This used to be very common. You don't see it quite so much these days, but every once in a while you still see it. So I just want to make sure you guys knew what that meant, right? So say we were going after a property and we knew it was worth $1 million, and your clients wanted to have $20,000 worth of closing costs, help the seller to help them out for closing costs at closing. What might we do on that offer, especially if we're competing against one other person?
We can offer that we shorten the time for closing, and
Yep.
yeah, so if they help out with the closing costs, we won't put contingencies or, to have the seller like help them, or they pay upfront like half of it, and maybe the seller will credit or pay the other half at the end, or credit them.
Yep. What's another way? If closing date is not, no one cares about the closing date, and where everybody says 30 days and it's 30 days, what's something else we can do so that we don't lose against somebody else? If you're
Like
representing the
earnest
buyer,
money. Can
if
we
you're-
put more earnest money?
true, or just a higher sales price, right?
A higher sale.
A higher sales price. So your client's going to get back $20,000 at closing. So maybe instead of $1 million, you give them $1,020,000. So that way you can compete against the $1 million offer, because the seller doesn't care. Because the seller, you know, hey, if you give me $1,020,000 and I'm giving you back 20, I'm still ending up with $1 million either way. So what do I care? By the way, if you're a listing
So
agent,
you put the offer like more,
Mhm.
120, and then, but you have to agree from the seller to give back that money upfront at the end of
Exactly.
this year.
Yep. And if you're going to do that, honestly, it's best to call the listing agent and explain to them what's going on. Say, hey, just so you know, we all agree the place is worth $1 million. My clients are going to offer $1,020,000 because they need $20,000 worth of closing costs. You know, is your seller okay with that? Or do you feel comfortable explaining to your seller that, because some agents don't even know how to explain this to their sellers. So that's something you'll want to walk through the listing agent if you're going to do that. Let me ask you this: if you do offer $1,020,000, and you win and if you win the bidding war, your clients get the contract. What is a problem you might face now?
It's the appraising, it's going to be higher.
Great job, Amal. Yeah, absolutely. So this can happen. Say a property is worth $1 million, and we get really cute, and we're like, we're going to give you 1.1 million, and we need $100,000 credit at closing to help cover from costs or whatever, blah, blah, blah. The lender is going to be like, whoa, 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 hold on a second. The appraisal came back at $1 million. What the hell are you guys doing offering $1.1 million? We don't want to loan $1.1 million on a home that's only worth $1 million. That's, you know, something's fishy there, right? So
would the lender like oppose to that and
right, yeah.
delay the
Well, if there's an appraisal problem, now you have a whole nother problem. That's fun for another day, but you'd have to figure out, you know, how to address an appraisal problem. Yeah.
So what's the best way to negotiate the closing costs?
I mean, I would still go with price, and usually if a property's pretty close to you know, to market value, you'll probably be fine. But if it's a really big bidding war and the price is getting crazy out of hand, and you already know appraisal is going to be an issue, if your client's asking for another few percent more because they're going to offer 3% extra because they're getting 3% in closing costs, now you've taken a problem and made it worse, right?
Yeah, but how do you solve that? Like
sometimes you can't solve it, and sometimes you have to just know. So the best thing you can do is tell your client, like, hey, just so you know, the price is already getting kind of crazy, and we're asking for closing costs. So just so you know, we might have a problem with the appraisal, and if that happens, here's how we're going to address that, right? And you walk them through what happens in the appraisal and what happens if the appraisal comes back low, right? But just scenarios like that, you want to be thinking ahead and thinking of what are the possible problems down the road, and letting your client know, hey, just so you know, here's a problem we might have 2 weeks from now. And I want you to know about it now. And if it happens, here's what's going to happen. You want to, in a calm demeanor, help your client, help them see any problems which might happen down the road, and what will happen if that happens, right? So that way, when you have the appraisal, and if it comes back low, you say to your clients, hey guys, just as I mentioned, the appraisal did come back low. So now we've got to figure out what do we want to do there, and do we want to, you know, and you'll have already gone over those options. So it's going to be a lot easier for them than if this was all of a sudden a surprise to them, right?
And would they like split the closing costs?
The problem is going to be the appraisal amount. So say the house is worth $1 million, or the house is worth $1 million, and it appraised at or let's say the purchase price was 1.1 million and the house appraised at $1,050,000. There's $50,000 that are now unaccounted for. And there's a bit of negotiating that happens. Sometimes the seller is like, you know what, we'll give it to you at $1,050,000. That's fair enough. Sometimes the seller's like, no way, pay up or you're going to lose the property. And then the buyer says, okay, I'll pay the $50,000. I've got some extra cash I can do. Or sometimes people split it and they say, I'll pay 25 and you come down 25 on the price. But you never know. That's a whole nother round of negotiating.
And is that still be including the closing costs, like get it back at the end?
At that point, the closing cost is already a done deal because you could negotiate the closing costs. You'll say, okay, I'll come down I'll pay for the $50,000 worth of closing costs, but I'm not giving you if we're going to do that, I'm not going to give you I'll pay for the appraisal amount. I'll come down in price. But if we're going to do that, I'm not giving you the closing costs anymore. And then your buyer will have to see, can we still make this happen without those closing costs? And sometimes the deal will blow up, and you try to find creative ways to solve the problem, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes the deal ends because of an appraisal. It's possible.
I see.
Okay, moving on. Okay, now we're going to be talking about the 3 P's approach to negotiating, which this is going to set you up to discuss the following topic of counter tactics. Okay, turn to page 7 in your participant guide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, negotiation is a skill. It can be learned and perfected with experience. The best practice for negotiation and bringing the buyer and seller together is using the 3 P's approach. The 3 P's are there. It's prepare, present, and position. And here's what that means. Preparation is key to building confidence and ensuring a smooth negotiation process. Presenting is moving into the negotiation process by presenting your offer to your client or your offer to the other agent. Position is moving both parties close until you have full agreement, right? Positioning means compromising, right? I want this price and I want them to include the washer and dryer. Okay, well, they're saying no. Which would you prefer? Do you want the price or do you want the washer and dryer? Well, I really want the washer and dryer. Okay, well, then we're gonna have to give them a little bit on price apparently. What do you want to do? Moving closer so that we can get to an agreement. Okay, so now turn to page 8 in the participant guide. Okay, so we're talking about the first of those 3 P's, the preparation part, right? So this is going to help you build confidence to help ensure a smooth negotiation process. So know your goal. Have a clear goal of reaching a win-win agreement in which both the buyer and seller are satisfied with the outcome of the negotiation. Remind your client of their motivation for moving or buying the house, and that when the contract closes, they'll be able to move on with their lives. Oftentimes when negotiating, now be careful, you don't want to try to push your client too hard, but oftentimes, if they're kind of getting stuck and they're like, I don't know, and this is very common. God, I don't know. Ed, what do you think? Well, we've looked at a lot of homes, and this is we have a pretty clear checklist of what you want in a home. And this home meets all those criteria. It's got the backyard that you wanted. None of the other homes really had this good of a backyard. And that you said that was the most important thing to you. I know you don't like the foyer, but that's not as important to you as the backyard, right? That's right. Well, it's got the 3 bedrooms and look, we've been looking for a while. In 30 days from now, you'll be able to move in here. You can paint the foyer and make it the way you want it. And you'll be done with this process. You'll be moving in and this is going to be home. Try that on. How does that feel? Okay, let's just go ahead. No, screw it. Just go ahead. Put the offer in. Come down on the price. It's fine. Or offer more money. That's fine. Let's make this happen. Let's do this, right? That right there is like an exact scenario of like 90% of the time of what negotiating looks like in real life.
So you negotiate with the buyer first to get the deal, like with your client to
Yeah.
narrow down what he wants exactly.
Yeah, well, just remind them of what they're sometimes if there's an appropriate moment, and they're not, sometimes there's not. If your client's like, no effing way, I'm out of here, it's not a good time to be like, well, we have seen a bunch of properties and this was the first one that has the swimming pool you always wanted. They're gonna be like, are you not listening to me? I said no. Like, so you have to read your client and read their language, right? What is their tone? Are they like, I don't know, or are they just like, absolutely no, I hate this house, let's move on? If you don't want to fight them on it, right?
Do you think the disc comes in, knowing the disc comes in when you are working with your client?
That is a super smart question, Eric Bailey. I'm proud of you for asking that. And yes, absolutely. If you're with a high, so how do you work with a high D?
Well, I just want the facts. Like, just tell me, like, cause that's me.
Right.
So don't waste my time on all this small talk. Just give me what it is, and I can go.
Don't waste my time. That's the motto of a high D person, which means that when you're working with a high D, you stay out of the way, right? You let them lead. They'll tell you what they need. Hey, what do you think of this price? How do the comps look? Yes, it all checks out. The comps look really good. Great, then let's make it happen. There you go. That's a D telling you how to negotiate right there. A high S, they're worried about, like, I don't know, is this a good neighborhood? Like, I'm a little concerned because, there's power lines that are 3 blocks away. And I read this article once that power lines, even if they're like a quarter mile away, can still have an effect because I'll be driving underneath them on my way to work. And, I'm kind of worried and I'm scared, and, they're going to need a little more time and hand holding to get them through that. A high C, someone who's very analytical. Hey, can you show me the graphs? I need that. Let me see what are the comps on that? Show me the numbers. You wanted to show them the numbers, right? And then a high I, they just want to have a party. You're going to end up talking about sports for 30 minutes. And then at the end, they're going to be like, oh my God. Oh, by the way, on the house, yeah, let's go ahead and put in that price. Yeah, that sounds good. That's what negotiating looks like for different personality types, and a little bit of a side there. Okay, so let's move on here. Let me make sure we stay on target. Okay, so know your client. Make sure you fully understand your client's goals. Learn the areas in which they are willing to negotiate and where they will stand firm. Think ahead. Anticipate what the other party wants out of the negotiating, or even better yet, ask the other agent. Write down how you think they may counter the offer and how you plan to handle it. Set clear expectations prior to meeting with the other party. Set clear and realistic expectations with your client. Then under promise and over deliver. That's a great point right there. With your clients, under promise, over deliver, right? Always be telling your client, like, hey, I think, even if you think you can get the property for $1.5 million, tell them, hey, you know what? I think this property is going to go for $1.55 million or $1.6 million, but let's see what we can do in negotiating, right? You want to under promise, over deliver. I mean, while still being honest, you don't want to mislead them either. Stress the importance of moving quickly to create a sense of urgency. Part of setting clear expectations with your client is being clear that win-lose agreements are likely to be rejected by the other side. To set yourself up for success, make it win-win. There's this misconception that of like, I totally won that negotiation, right? Usually, the way to win a negotiation is to find the common ground where everybody's going to win. That's a big myth of negotiating, is that I want the other party to lose. By the way, what happens if you're the seller and you totally pull one on a buyer and you get the buyer to write an offer that's $100,000 too much for the property? What's going to happen during the inspection period? They're going to realize that it's worth way less than what they bid on it, and it's going to be a disaster. So, you do want to win the
know that, would they back out?
Yeah, they can back out during the inspection period, right? So
if I have a question. If the inspection or the appraisal came less than what the offer is, would they back out?
They can.
The offer?
Yeah, they can. Yeah. or they'll
They don't
ask the
lose,
seller to pay for the difference. Yeah.
so they won't lose the earnest money or,
No, because that's covered under the appraisal contingency. The house has to appraise, otherwise you can back out with the appraisal contingency.
okay.
Um,
And is that 7 days?
no, that's I believe that's 14 days by default, but it's in the contract. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so be informed before making an offer or counteroffer. It's good practice to speak with 2 other agents. Ask open-ended questions and use active listening to find out as much as you can about the other party and their agent. This helps you know with who you're negotiating, on what points you will negotiate, and where you and your clients have leverage. Obey the laws. Every state and locality has their own set of laws that regulate zoning, mortgage, qualification, and other real estate matters. Stay current on your local regulations and stay out of court. Know the documents inside and out. So become familiar with your local board of realtors governing forms. Take the time needed to understand the form templates and what belongs in each field. Especially California is pretty unique. Our counteroffer forms, buyer counteroffer 1, seller counteroffer 1, seller multiple counteroffer forms, they're pretty unique, and take some time to print them. Here's a great exercise for everybody in your first year of real estate. Print out a blank RPA, print out a blank buyer counteroffer 1, a blank seller counteroffer, and a blank seller multiple counteroffer, and just leave them on your nightstand. And whenever you have a spare minute, read a paragraph or 2 and just page through it. You want to know what's in these contracts, because this is your lifeblood. This is a document that you should know very, very well. Most of you guys already know it pretty well anyways from training, from taking the exam, but you do want to get to know it. And changes are constantly being made to it. Not all the time, but from time to time, there's changes made. Okay. Moving on, learn. Understanding the right questions to ask is important to the negotiation process. Asking questions, like Eric was talking about earlier, allows you to establish and uncover objectives and goals of your client or the buyer listing agent. Through asking questions, you gain more information. As you gain information, you will strengthen your ability to negotiate and increase your chances of having a win-win negotiation. Benefits of asking questions include: it provides you with the points you will negotiate on, provides insight on where you and your client will have leverage, sets clear expectations, you get to know your client and their goal, you learn what will make it a win-win negotiation for both parties. By the way, the same investor clients who wrote the offer last week, they're also interested in another property. And so I called up the agent and I started just poking questions. And surprisingly, this agent just kept answering my questions, very, very specific questions that I was actually surprised he was answering. But apparently this place has fallen in and out of contract 3 times. I know exactly the amounts on every offer they've already accepted that fell out. I know what's important to them. I know what's happening and why I know everything there is to know about this transaction, which means I have a tremendous amount of leverage when my clients are getting ready to write up an offer on it. I don't know if we'll get it, but at least I have everything. I have I have all the ammunition in my gun that I could possibly have to make this work. Okay, moving on. It sets asking questions sets clear expectations. You get to know your client and their goal. You learn what will make it a win-win negotiation for both parties. At a basic level, there's 2 main types of questions used in a negotiation: open-ended and closed-ended questions. Open-ended questions that have unlimited responses. For example, what additional information should I know? That's, by the way, whenever you're asking a series of questions, that's always a great one to end on. So is there anything else I should know? That's a great one. So when you're talking to the agent before you're getting ready to submit an offer, by the way, a great habit to get into is as a buyer's agent, before you're going to write up an offer for your client, call up the agent and be like, hey, Eric, hey man, it's Ed over at Keller Williams. Hey, how's it going? Good, man. Hey, so as you know, I brought clients by to see 123 Main Street. Good news, man. We're getting ready to write up an offer. So let me ask you, from your seller's perspective, obviously they want the highest price point, but what else is important to them? What does a perfect contract to your sellers look like? How many days closing? What do you want in there? What what escrow company, what buyer company, right? Well, again, I hate getting off track to give you guys examples. That deal that I just won with 10 other people, everyone assumed that the agent, they just wanted their deal to close as soon as possible. I called the agent and the agent told me, actually, don't waste your time. We need 45 days. This is a what do you call it? A probate sale, not a probate, an estate sale. And we need 45 days. We can't move any faster. So the ideal is 45 days. And I keep getting these offers for 12 days, and that's not, we need 45. So my offer right from the get-go said 45 days. And we already started building great rapport right from the get-go because I asked questions. So you never know what the client wants. So call the agent up and ask him, build rapport. What escrow company do you prefer I use? Anything else I should know? What does your perfect offer look like? Because I'm getting ready to write it up, so I'll put it however you want it, right? Okay. Some other open-ended questions is what is important? Why is it important? You mentioned you like to close in 30 days. Why is that important to you? How do you feel about that, right? How do you feel about that is often a digging deeper question. So when somebody answers a question, if you feel like there's more there and you want to go further, so, oh, why do you say that? Or how do you feel about that, right? Closed-ended questions that have a specific response, often yes or no, or one word. Examples: do you have to sell your home by a specific date? Do you have any other offers? What is the bottom line price you will consider? Closed-ended questions are ones that are best used when the client is kind of hesitant to answer the question and you really want to kind of push them a little bit to get the answer. For example, if you're calling the agent on the other side, you want to ask them, how many offers do you already have in your hand right now? What's the highest offer that you have right now? What's the highest dollar amount? Now, they won't always answer, but no harm in asking, right? Okay. There's a simple script that can be used to help you get ahead and get the information you need to have a successful win-win negotiation. The script is, what would happen if asking this question helps you anticipate the next step of the negotiation, right? So oftentimes your clients are like, well, I don't want to offer list price. I want to offer, well, what would happen if they receive 3 other offers and they're all at list price, right? And oftentimes you use silence. When you're asking a difficult question to answer, ask the question and then just shut the hell up and take a sip of, that's always a great time to take a sip of water or whatever. Just hang out there. Sometimes for a minute, 2 minutes, whatever. Check your phone. I'm just kidding.
I love that.
I mean, you just let it hang there. And eventually, I love, use silence, right? Silence is good. Why is this important to you? Another great question. So if a client's asking something unreasonable, really, you want the washer and dryer? They have 10 offers on the table right now. We're about to make a competitive offer. They told us the washer and dryer is not included, but you want to include the washer and dryer. Why is that important to you, right? So granted, I'm also making a point by my tone, but you get what I'm saying, right? Okay, we want to ask questions that clarify and set clear expectations. So turn to page 9 of your participant guide. Hopefully you have it there. Read the scenario and record down clarifying questions and ahas. So think of some questions that you could ask to clarify what's going on there. Anybody have a suggestion of what is it? By the way, Julie, I'm sorry I didn't call on you earlier when we were going through. Do you have any suggestions after reading the scenario there? I want to make sure you're included as well.
Oh, yeah, 1 sec. Sorry, I didn't finish reading it yet.
Okay. So feel free to chime in as soon as you guys can think of any questions to answer that.
Question, maybe ask the seller's agent, what's the maximum that or the buyer, what's the maximum they can pay without
Let's-
losing the property?
These are questions we're going to ask our buyer. We're just questions. We're just talking about questions for our client first.
Okay, so how much would the buyer would pay, the maximum amount?
Yeah.
Yeah, or would they pay for the closing costs?
Sure. Well, if it's your buyers, you'd be asking that of the seller. But what else could you tell them? What about the repair?
If they okay to do the repair, or
Yeah, you could
yeah,
say,
like get an estimate how much would the repair cost?
yeah. So hey, if we get an estimate for a repair, making that repair to fix the roof for 10,000, what do you think of us paying for the repair? And instead we stay at your asking price of 155,000, right? You could do that. What else could you ask them? Anybody else want to chime in with a question?
How often they will, or how fast, how soon they want to move to the property?
Yeah, absolutely. You could ask them, what is it about this house that makes it your favorite?
Mm-hmm.
You could remember we're talking about what if the next thing that happens is that the seller counters with a full offer to fix the roof, or they counter with no repair at all.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
That makes sense?
And
okay, let's move on. Let's move on because we still have a bit to cover and we're running out of time. So turn to page 10 of the participant guide. These are some tips for presenting an offer with the other agent. Call the other agent ahead of time. We talked about that, the value of that. Pay attention to nonverbal cues, right? So it's a very important time to pay attention to their tone and what else are they telling you as they're telling you what's going on with that deal. Keep quiet once you present an offer. Listen carefully to what is important to the other party. Stay calm and relaxed. This is a good one. I wish every agent would do this. Stay calm and relaxed. Chill out, Focus on the customer's needs. Give your offer the best chance possible. I know it says here for you guys to take some time to read through those, but we're going to continue. We're on page 11 now. So review the participant guide information about positioning. So we're talking about positioning here. So you want to ask what and how questions. For example, remember, this is when we present the, like say we have buyers, we get a counter offer from the seller, and now but we're still not where we need to be. Now we're working with our buyer to try to get them to figure out what can they compromise on to help make this deal happen, right? So you could give them some what and how questions, right? Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you're requesting a 30-day closing. What is important about closing in 30 days? So if your client becomes defensive, and by the way, I love this. This is a great script right here. This whole little script, these 2 lines, this is beautiful. This is really well done. My so the reason I'm asking is my goal is to let the buyer know why this point is important to you. Obviously, this is if you're representing the seller. If you're representing the buyer, you say, hey, look, guys, the only reason I'm asking you that is because I need to. I want to let the seller know why this point is important to you. Understanding what is important to the other party allows you to prioritize and address their issues in orders of importance, right? Like we were talking about earlier. Read the instructions on page 12 of the participant guide. Okay, we're not going to do this. We'd have to break up into rooms, and we're not going to do that right now. But this is a good exercise. Maybe we'll do this sometime during script practice, where you go back and forth with the goal of a win-win agreement, right? How are we doing on time? Let me see. Do we have time to do this? No, we got to wrap it up. Okay, let's move on. But you can read through there and you get that activity. It's something great, like, see if somebody has some time, shoot somebody an email and say, hey, do you want to go over some scripts? And this would be a great exercise to go over. Okay, so we're going to talk a little about counter tactics. So turn to page 13. Yeah, let's skip through that. That's another good one to be doing. Yeah, maybe let's do what we'll do a script day next week where we'll talk about maybe on Tuesday of next week we'll work on negotiating. Yeah, all these exercises we're going to do these on Tuesday after the morning meeting. We'll go over some of the stuff.
So next Tuesday we'll practice this script, the negotiation.
Yeah, we're going to kind of but here's some tactics, right? The hot potato, the good guy, bad guy, and nibbling. See if you can see if like on the screen here, see if you can figure out which one is the different tactic. You guys reading through that?
Should we practice on that?
No, we're just see. There's those three tactics are hot potato, good guy, bad guy, and nibbling, and match those up with A, B, or C. So which one is the hot potato? Anyone want to take a guess? A, B, or C?
Which one had the
Hot potato, I would say is B.
Correct. Hot potato is test the validity, find out if the problem is real. Has the party with the problem exhausted every possible solution? Right? Like that means it's your problem. Hey, you can't come up with a down payment. Have you exhausted every possible thing? Have you gone to family members? Have you done that? Let's figure out if we have a solution before we go back to the other side. What's good guy, bad guy? A or C? It's kind of obvious because it's in the answer.
Yeah, C.
C, right? So we call them on their game. If it continues, then attribute what the bad guy says to the good guy since they're a tag team anyways. This likely will diffuse the tactic because now you have two bad guys. And this is further discussed, I believe, on page 13 in your participant guide if you want to read more about it later. And nibbling is ask for a concession in return before agreeing to any further concessions, right? Sometimes you have an agent on the other side, and they're like, well, will you guys come down $5,000? You're like, yeah, they probably will do that. Well, will they give in the microwave then? Well, hold on a second here. I just told you we'd give in $5,000. Before we do anything else, you guys are gonna have to give something, right? So you don't want to just have them keep nibbling away at you. Okay, so we don't have time to go through the real play of doing that. Let me read through this and I'll come with we're going to come up with some exercises from that, and we'll tackle some of that part on Tuesday after the morning meeting. Let's skip ahead to the ahas. So what have we learned today? What are some good takeaways from all the stuff we covered today? A lot of good stuff in there.
Learn what your clients want exactly, and listen carefully when you propose your offer.
I love that. Absolutely. Ask a lot of questions, right? See, notice how I asked the question and then I took a drink of water and I was quiet.
So do you want me to say more, or you're waiting?
No, I was looking not for you, Amal. Amal, you already had your answer. I was looking more at Eric, Julia, and Jenny. Any other answers there?
Stay focused on your goal.
Say that again, Julia.
Stay focused on your goal.
Correct. Yes. Stay focused. Yeah. Don't, not just your goal, but the goal of your clients, right? So stay focused on their goal. What do they want to achieve? That keep your eye on the prize. Don't get distracted by trying to be a hero and come up with like the best deal on a property anyone's ever gotten. You want, the biggest thing is you're getting them the house they want and you're getting them a good deal, right? Sometimes the best deal is the one that gets them to the finish line. Jenny, how about you? You got anything well, you came in late, so I don't know if you picked up on anything.
I couldn't get the link to work. I don't know why. Did you all get it to work?
I tried in the beginning, like with Joey's email, it didn't work, but with the marketplace, it did work.
Interesting.
That's on Facebook. That's on Facebook, or
No,
how do I find that next time?
You
The
get
Market Center.
I will
market.
tell you that the morning meeting check-in and Ignite have the same login, and they never change. They're the same every week. Every morning check-in and every Ignite and every script practice, they all have the same login.
Oh,
Like
okay,
Joey sent me another link, and that one worked, but that's when I got in.
Okay, thanks for letting me know. I'll check with Tara to make sure she's got the correct link.
Do you record these where I could go back and watch what I missed?
Absolutely, this is being recorded.
Okay,
Live before
so it's on.
studio audience.
Where do I find it?
It's on the Keller Williams Larchmont shared the YouTube page.
Okay, thanks. I learned how to ask a hard question and be quiet. That's all I learned.
Good stuff. That's powerful. Eric, do you want to add anything?
Oh no, just listen. You know, you never know what you can get from someone if you continue to talk. If you just listen and watch people's cues, they'll probably give you more information.
And remember what I said at the outset too, at the very beginning, about there's this misconception of the best negotiators are super tough and they're intimidating and there's these big powerful agents and stuff. I promise you, the best agents are the ones who see common ground and they like I said, the times when I've been the softest negotiating is when the people on the other side have been soft and I don't even realize it, and then later on I'm like, oh yeah, gosh, I probably could have gotten an extra 1,000 or 2 if I was really focused. And the people I like them so much, I let my guard down and I probably gave away a little more than I could have, right? And I mean that. The agents who, by the way, the agents who are like super intimidating and like are kind of my daughter was just in the room, so I can't say it. Who are a bit of a smart aleck, the people who give you lip or whatever, like you see them coming a mile away, and they're kind of easy to tell. Like you just stay out, they're easy to negotiate with. It's the people who are super sweet who you're always like, God, I really want to find a way to make this work, because it would be so easy working with, it would be so enjoyable having a transaction with this agent. So let's see if we, let's give them a little extra benefit of the doubt.
I think it's more like a poker player.
Yeah, that's a great way. Yeah.
If I don't give you a lot of information unwillingly, like if you ask me a question and I give you the information, then I'm letting you have that. But I'm not going to tell you everything else. I'm going to make you work for it. Type of thing.
Absolutely. Great point. On that note, remember I was telling you I called the agent and they were telling me all sorts of stuff, which they probably shouldn't have, like the list price, the prior 2 contracts, what the place was under, why it fell out of contract, what are they looking for, what the number. I mean, he was basically like telling me the exact number that I would need to come in at to win the bid, and I would never do that. That's awful. Like that doesn't. I mean, I'm glad he told me that, but I wouldn't do that. If I have a listing and buyers call me, now there's exceptions to this, but for the most part, if I have a listing and buyers call me and say, hey, I will say how many offers we have. So if we don't have any offers yet, I tell them that because I feel like that's fair. But I don't ever disclose the number. If they say, hey, what number should we come in at? Well, You've seen the price. I think we're very aggressively priced. We expect a lot of high interest with very aggressive numbers. I suggest you put your best number out there and, you know, put your best number on paper and send it over, and let's see what we can do. That little script, I use that all the time. And if they ask me again, I say the same exact thing again. I say, look, I just told you, I think it's aggressively priced. Put down the best number you've got on a piece of paper, send it on over, and let me see what I can do.
So Ed, let me ask you this. If you're in a multiple offer situation and an agent comes up and goes, you know, whatever, like, what's the highest offer? Obviously, you're not going to tell them that. But would you be like, if the house is like on the market for 1.9 and you have offers that are all full price, would you be like, it needs to have like a 2 in front of it?
Yeah, so here's what happens. So now, not every transaction is the same, but in general, say I'm representing a listing and I haven't told anybody anything, and all the offers came in, and let's say I got 10 offers and they were all at list price. Or let's say 5 were at list price, 5 were under list price. So I would probably do a multiple counter offer to the 5 who are at list price, and I would send it all back to them, and I'd say, hey guys, please submit your best and final. Now, sometimes they don't all have to be the exact same. So say all of you all submitted an offer at list price on my listing. So I might send back a seller multiple counter offer to each one of you. And to Eric, I might say, hey, Eric, everything looks great. Please submit your best and final price by tomorrow at 5:00 p.m. By the way, the highest right now is at list price. Amal, please submit your best and final offer by tomorrow at 5 p.m. By the way, all the offer, the highest offer right now is at list price. And by the way, if you want yours to work, you're going to need to have to shorten up your inspection period to 14 days because yours is not competitive right now. Julia, submit your offer tomorrow. But you know, you get what I'm saying. They can all be different. They don't all have to look the exact same. Some, by the way, and they can look completely different. I could say, Amal, submit your best and final offer by tomorrow at 5:00, and we'll see what I can do. Hey, Eric, if you'll submit an offer for $1,000,001, I will accept your offer right now. Like I can totally, there's no rhyme or reason. I can totally do that if I want to. Maybe the reason why I'm doing that is because Eric is an all cash with no contingencies, and I really want to make that one work. But if not, the other ones I'm looking for my backup, right? So that's it can all work out that way. They don't have to be the exact same, and sometimes they're all very different. And by the way, whatever anyone has offered to you, it's written in there that is not confidential. So you are not under any obligation to not tell every other party what the highest one is. So if all of you submit an offer and everybody's, here's an example. Every one of you guys submits an offer at $1 million, except for Jenny Turkson, who submits for 1.2 million. It is not illegal or immoral for me to go back to the rest of you guys and be like, hey guys, submit your best and final offer by tomorrow at noon. And by the way, we have an offer for 1.2 million, which is kind of sucks for Jenny because, you know, she's the one person at 1.2, but I can do that. Or I could say, we're going to negotiate one at a time. Jenny, I'm only negotiating with you. If you can do 1.25, I'm not doing a multiple counter offer. I have other people who are waiting. I'm going to try to negotiate with you first. I'm giving you an offer of 1.25 counter offer. Will you take that? If Jenny says no, I say, okay, sorry, but we're going to try to negotiate with person number 2 and just work my way down the list. And I'll say, now I'm negotiating with Eric. Eric, will you accept a counter offer of 1.25? No? Okay. Amal, will you accept an offer of 1.25? Like you can totally do that too. That's another way of doing it. It's kind of customary in LA to pick your best batch of offers and tell everyone, please submit your best and final by this date, this time.
What you said, if they put an offer more than the appraisal, isn't that a problem? Like if it's for 190 and then somebody's paying.
So, well, at the time you're writing up the offer, I don't have the appraisal yet, so we don't know what the appraisal is going to be. But yeah.
And if the appraisal came in like it's over appraised, like 2 million, like it's more than it should be.
That's it. You're right. That is a problem. So if the property is worth $1 million, I think it's going to appraise at $1 million. and I get two offers, both for 1.1 million. One is cash, has no contingencies, and one is 95% loan with a loan and appraisal contingency, which offer am I going to go after?
The one with no contingency.
Exactly, because that's not going to have any problems, right?
Yeah.
That's why cash is king. That's why people give a premium to offers that are cash without contingencies, because it protects the seller from having problems down the road. It also protects the seller from having the buyer come back and saying, I want $100,000 credit because there's a stain on the carpet, you know, which can happen, by the way. You know, buyers can request anything for any reason. They can say, I want a $200,000 credit because there's a cracked tile in the kitchen. You know, it does not have to be reasonable. Anyways, let's wrap it up here. There's always more fun to be had. Negotiating and counter offers. This is such a fun, interesting topic for tweaky people like me who love to work with numbers and you know, little details and stuff. Any last questions before we wrap it up? Okay, so on that note, this call will be recorded. So Jenny, here, let me stop recording. Jenny, are you all set as far as, what were we talking about the other day? What do you call it? CMAs. Because you saw that Pete's going to teach a CMA class next week.
Yeah, I was sick this past week, and so I didn't really get anything done. So now I'm back in the groove.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better. So that's